Craig here with the Single Tree team brokered by eXp Realty. Recently, we put a Fannie Mae foreclosed property under contract. And it got me thinking about the foreclosure process. In the past, I have been asked, what is the main difference between a traditional real estate transaction and a foreclosure? I've always said very simply that an entity is selling the property when it's a foreclosure. There's a family with emotional attachment selling the home in a traditional transaction. With the entity as strictly dollars and cents. But then I actually sat down and thought about that a little bit. So there are some differences. I made some notes. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit. And then we can also kind of talk about my background in the foreclosure industry. So the very first thing is going to be there's various formats that these foreclosures are sold in. Some of them are an auction format. Some are traditional MLS format. The auction format is typically going to be occupied properties. The occupied properties we will not be able to tour, you will not be able to inspect, and you'll have to evict the occupant at the time of closing, or legal process after we close on the property. If it's in the MLS, typically we're going to be able to walk through the properties as long as they are safe to walk through, and there are many that are. I mean, these could be anywhere from a $50,000 property to multi-million-dollar foreclosures, but they're all going to need some type of work. Okay. The first 21 days on the market, this is for owner occupants only. After 21 days, then it opens up to investors. HUD is the only entity that will request your social security number or FEIN number at the time of writing the offer. That's how they track the transactions. I don't know of any others that do that. Fannie and Freddie do not. Okay. Fannie and Freddie, when we actually get to the point of writing an offer on the property, is going to be an electronic submission. So we're going to be entering the information into their system. They're going to send you an email with the terms of the contract. And then we're going to negotiate essentially verbally. I will be reaching out to you via phone call, text message, whatever, saying, hey, this is their response. Then it will go back into their system. We'll respond accordingly. And once we come to terms with the deal, basically, they're going to put that onto their contract. We will not use a board contract for this transaction. We will be using their contracts. They will send it to us. We will review and execute the contract and send it back. Then we have 24 hours to send them the earnest money, whether that is a cashier's check or a bank wire. But we only have 24 hours to get that done. So things kind of work in a faster pace when we're dealing with the foreclosure market. There are no disclosures with these properties. The entity that is selling it never lived in the property, so they don't know anything about them as far as condition, leaks, things of that nature. You're going to have a 10-day inspection period, which for Missouri, that's no different. For the Illinois side, that's cutting that inspection time frame in half. These properties are normally going to be sold in an as-is format. So, you might be able to do some negotiating with them for repairs. So typically, termite and or radon. If either one of them come up positive, we can ask them to treat for termites or to add a radon mitigation system. There are some of these properties that Fannie, Freddie typically will rehab or essentially flip. Put some money into them, get a higher return back on them. Those we can do some negotiations as far as repairs typically. Then we get down to the actual closing process. For a cash deal, they can do a email closing where they email you the documents. You'll do some electronic signatures. You'll have to probably take a couple documents to your bank, title company, have them notarize them, upload them, send them back. If you are financing the transaction, then we need to go to the title company. There's just too many documents to do it any other way. Get everything notarized and taken care of that way. The last thing that is going to be a little bit different is they're always going to ask for a 45-day time frame on the contract. That way they can make sure that they get clear title and they don't have to do any extensions, hopefully. With that being said, when they do get a clear title, then they'll reach out to me and say, hey, we're ready to close. Well, let us know when you guys are ready to go. We can close within 3 days. So we may say the original contract is 45 days, but we may be able to close this if it's a cash deal in 12 days, or if it's financed in 30 days, whatever the case is. Okay. Now a little bit about my history. Roughly 10 years ago, I was a foreclosure specialist with Coldwell Banker. I did that for 5 years in addition to traditional real estate transactions. So I have a great deal of history with this. I worked with Fannie and Freddie selling their properties. I also had a relationship with Associated Bank and listed their and sold their properties. Now, when we're dealing with smaller banks, now when I say small, but Bank of America, Wells Fargo, FCB, Associated Bank, Regions Bank, whatever the case is, we will not be utilizing their documents, their contracts. We'll be using our board contracts, and really nothing else is really going to change as far as the timelines and those types of things. Usually a foreclosure is still going to be sold in an as-is state though. I hope this is informative. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to help.